you have a story, you want a reading, you want me to help you with your life, you have a health problem that you can't put your finger on, and you're like, why is my shoulder constantly in problem? And you want me to read it and you want me to get into it. I'm not that medical expert, but I can tell you where the emotion is attached to it. I think you'll be surprised at how powerful that is. So I would love to hear from you. Go to lisawilliams.com/podcast-guest and we will get you on the show.
Hi everyone. Before we begin, I want to let you know that this podcast is for informational and inspirational purposes only. The advice and insights shared here are based on my personal experiences and expertise, but they are not a substitute for professional, medical, psychological, or business advice. If you are dealing with a specific issue, please consult a qualified expert. And thanks for watching.
Welcome to Hope, Healing and Transformation. I'm Lisa Williams, and today we are diving into something that touches every single one of us, and that is grief. Grief and healing, and how the unseen world, meaning them lot upstairs, spirit, those loved ones that you have, how they can help us and guide us through it. You know, when we experience loss, whether it is losing a loved one, facing an illness, grieving the life that we once had or we thought we were going to have, whether it's empty nesting, changing a job, changing a relationship, any of this can leave us feeling powerless. But I'm here to tell you that healing is possible. And sometimes that healing comes in ways that we never expected. Before we begin, I want to share a story that embodies everything that what this podcast is about. I had a client that was really deeply in massive amounts of grief. She had changed her job. She had lost her love of her life, her husband. Her children had left the nest. In fact, her stepchildren were no longer talking to her. And all of a sudden, she didn't know what to do. She was having these health issues. She was having these challenges. And she came to me and said, "What do I do?" And I said, "What do you know what to do?" And she said, "All I know is love. All I know is how to love and give love." I said, "Well, that's where you start. You start working intuitively, connecting into who you are, into that love that you are, and you channel that love where it needs to go." And I said, "Where does it need to go?" And she thought about it for a moment, and she went, "It needs to start with me." And I said, "Exactly. You are the most important person in your life." And so she did all the work. She started to focus on herself. And slowly, people started to come to her. Her stepchildren started to speak to her. She found a new relationship with her loved one in spirit, and she found she could talk to him. It was amazing. Her body started to be well. And when she put herself first and made her the most important person in her life, it transformed. And that's what I'm going to encourage you to do, is put you first. You are the most important person in your life. Just remember that. And so today, as we're exploring mediumship and how coaching and healing work together to actually help us to unlock these emotional breakthroughs, and why sometimes the most powerful messages come when we least expect them. So let's start looking at what is grief. Well, honestly, I don't know about you, but I've been through mountains and mountains of grief. Everybody has, okay? There are things that we all have, and yet we don't actually want to think that it's grief. We don't actually want to work with it. We're like, doesn't everybody have that? Everybody has all of this grief. Well, yes, but I'm going to say that we have pockets of it. And these pockets can happen often. Let's talk about these pockets of grief, okay? They're little minute little moments. So I'll talk about myself. My husband is active duty in the army, and I do not live full time with him. I have to jump between little locations. I'm constantly on the road. And in that space, what is happening for me is I'm having these moments of separation, these moments of grief, these moments of, wow, I have my husband back. Isn't it amazing? Yay. And then, and so I have these moments of tugging of grief. Just like if you have relied on your children, you love your children so much, but you're empty nesting. And then suddenly they come home and you're like, yeah, and then they leave again. And that grief resurfaces. Just like if you have those moments that you are missing your loved one so much, and then you have a dream about them and you're like, wow. And then you have that grief again. And sometimes it's this cycle of grief. And mediumship is so powerful. Okay, so let me tell you what mediumship is. Mediumship is the ability to communicate with the other side of life. It's not anything fantastic and, miraculous or anything like crazy. But what it is it's this ability to communicate. Now, when we look at these grief, whether it is change of job, whether it is a relationship breaking up, empty nesting, a loved one passing away, whatever it is, it's going to manifest within us. It's deep seated within us. And it manifests spiritually, physically, emotionally. And this spiritual side is sometimes where we have to really work it out, or we have to sit with it, or we question God. We question, is there a God? Why would a God take away my child? It's hard. And what grief manifests in this space, and it's the energy of loss. And it affects us. I'm sure there's times that you've had times where you just don't want to get out of bed. You are struggling. You're like, why do I want to get up today? What is going on? And now you're having to face dealing with paperwork and insurance policies and wills and everything else. And you're like, I don't need this. This is too much. Your body has taken on too much. And so what it's doing is it's crying out. And when we have this grief, a lot of people say, I'm stuck. And this is a big misconception. And why people feel stuck and how they can't move forward. Well, let's get to the bottom of this, guys. All right. Grief is real and it sucks. And it sucks big time. But there are moments that we have to say, are we going to become a victim of our grief, or are we going to dance with grief? Now, you'll hear me talk a lot about this. I think it's a big dance. I think life is a big dance. But what we have to do is we have to look at how life is throwing us information and throwing us situations. We have to dance through it. What I mean by that is life changes the music tempo. Life throws another dance partner in our way, and we just have to navigate around it. We don't always dance with the same person. People flow in and out of our life. So we have to flow in and out of our grief. There's there are some great teachers on grief. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, you have David Kessler, you have all of these people who are massive inspirations. And if I look at the model of grief, when they talk about, you go through denial, you go through anger, you go through depression, you go through all of these emotions, it's like a cycle. It never ends. You don't just suddenly get to the end of grief and, oh, I'm done with it. Hey, here I am. What we have to do is we have to navigate our way through it. So let's talk about how grieving comes and what I like to do with my clients. Now, obviously, do a normal mediumship reading. I can communicate with your loved one. We can have a good old laugh and we can share stories about, what they used to do and how they used to be and how you're spending their money and all of that. Listen, they love that. And the one thing I am going to say to you is just talk to them, okay? Because, your loved ones want to be spoken to. But for me, what I want to do is I want to help that person really find that healing. And I feel like when people are coming to me, they're struggling, especially when they come in to me for grief counseling or grief coaching. And I'm like, so what is it? What is it that you are struggling with? Let me tell you about a story with a client, okay? Her mother had just died. She had autoimmune disease. She had a lot of pressure on her. She was finalizing the will. She was going through all of this stuff. And she was like, Lisa, I just keep getting in this way. I just keep struggling with it. I don't know how to get up in the morning. And I said, okay, so tell me what you're doing. She said, well, I just keep asking my mom to help me. And I said, that's great. I love that. I said, but what is happening in that moment? And that's when I realized I was getting into a coaching situation. And I said, so what is happening? And she said, well, I'm not hearing anything. And so because I'm not hearing anything, I'm not doing anything because I don't know how to do anything. And I went, so you are still relying on your mom in the same way that you used to in life? And she's like, of course. And I said, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. What you actually need to do is you need to formulate your own relationship with your mom right now. And you have to start listening to your own intuition. And of course, she throws her hands up in the air and she's like, oh God, here we go. Woo, 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 woo. And I'm like, yeah, woo, 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 woo. Let's get down to it. And so we started her off on this journey of intuition and starting listening to her own thoughts and her own self. And recognizing when her body wanted to do something, when it didn't want to do something, when she felt she was right and when she felt she was wrong. And it's simple. And so when she was getting up, she said, I'm no longer asking my mom to help me through the day. And I said, okay, and how is that working for you? She said, you know what's funny, Lisa, is I'm actually having better days. I said, oh, are you? How? She said, I'm not as tired. I'm making decisions. I'm clearer. I have no brain fog. I'm like, huh. And then suddenly I realized, I went, oh my gosh, you are living like your mom is still in this world, yet she's in the spirit world and you haven't really come to terms with the fact that she has gone. And she agreed with it. And we went through this coaching and I said, you have become part of it. You haven't moved through it. You haven't navigated this space of grief. You're struggling. And she's like, I have. She said, you're right. And then she's told me a story. And I was really shocked. And she said, when my mom died, I didn't call the hospice for hours. She said, I can't even tell you how long it was. I just sat there. And I made her dinner. And I made her food. And I brought it to her. And I didn't want to accept it. And I said, so what happened? She said, it was only when my brother called me that I told him that mum wasn't eating and he wanted to come around. And she freaked out. She had this absolute freak out because her brother was going to come around. And it was when her brother came around later that night that she said that she had to deal with it. And this is someone who is in that real tough space, in this absolute denial that it even happened. And so when she came to me, she was really struggling. And so while mediumship works, mediumship is a really great tool. But I feel that in some aspects, it only scratches that little surface. It doesn't actually give you depth. It doesn't help you through the grieving process. And what we had to do is we had to take her on this massive grieving, place, and this massive, guidance to help her acknowledge what was really happening and empower her. And as the story unfolded, we started to realize that her mum was very controlling and controlled her life. She didn't know how to have a life without her mum. She had come into a caregiver's situation. She didn't know how to deal with it. And so she didn't know how to adult. And so in this space, what we had to do is we had to almost rebuild her. I can see her in my mind's eye right now. This is a teacher who lived in a major city. She could govern, children. She could teach really well. She actually got Teacher of the Year, or she got given some award or accolade. But she couldn't function. And this is what grief does to us. And I'm not sure if you're listening to this and you're relating to it and you're saying, what is it that I need to do? What is it that I can do? How can I help myself? So I'm going to share this with you. Okay, I'm going to share with you what you can do to help you through these moments. So first of all, let's talk about what mediumship can give you. Mediumship, communicating with the other side, having that connection with the other side is great. But what happens after the reading? You can continually listen to that reading by all means. And I've had it client after client who have said to me, I've listened to your reading, Lisa, and it has changed my life. That's great. But now, how are you going to establish your own relationship with that person? And your relationship comes from your own sense. And so here's what I want you to know is there is a difference between knowing that somebody is okay in spirit and actually feeling that they are okay and feeling that you are okay with what's happened. Okay? So there's a whole different experience. So you know that they are okay in spirit. You know that they are out of pain. You know that they are no longer suffering. You know that they are watching down at you. You know that they are making these crazy faces at you going, oh, you're buying those shoes again. You know all of that. But actually feeling okay is very, very different. And so what we want to do is we want to work you through this with energy, all right, to help you beyond that grief. Your body, okay, so if I'm going to use some Chinese medicine here. I'm not an acupuncturist. I've studied my minuscule amount of Chinese medicine. But when we are in grief, it affects our lungs and our large intestine. And so often when we're in massive amounts of grief, our stomach, our digestion goes, or we may have lung problems. It's just exactly where that grief comes. And so you may find that you'll have a cough, or your stomach might go, or you might feel like a little bit, it might feel a little bit off. And so what we want to do is we want to take you through this, to help you through the grief. So one of the things I would actually say to you is every single day, how am I feeling today? Simple. How am I feeling today? And maybe you might need to write this stuff down. Maybe you might need to say, hey, I'm not feeling well, or I'm not feeling this, or hey, I miss my mom. And that's okay. In fact, if you didn't miss your mom, there would be something wrong. Okay? Then start a plan. Humans need structure. Just like children, just like anything, we have to go back to being a child. A child needs structure. You know how to wake up. You know how to eat. You know how to do all of those things. Now what you need to do is put that into practice. Start a spiritual routine, a practice. And so whether that is breath work in the morning, whether that is meditation, whether that is journaling, and this is something that is so key. Your first 30 minutes of when you wake up is so influential to your life that you are going to live that day. If you are waking yourself up, staring at this phone and looking at, you're diving into somebody else's misery and grief on the big book of faces is what I call it. When you are diving into that big, that energy, you're diving into somebody else's stuff and you're taking that on. Your brain is like a sponge in first thing in the morning. Read a book, read something, 10 minutes, all it takes. Then calm your body down. Allow yourself to do some meditations. Then journal. Do some journaling. In fact, I'm actually going to go as far as saying to you, if you subscribe and you go to the subscription and you go and sign up on the website, I'm going to put the link in here. I'm going to send you a morning protocol that you can do yourself that you are able to help you through that morning. Simple journaling. Reading something, maybe 5 pages, maybe even 10 pages if you have time. Then meditation. Then allowing yourself to walk. Clear your mind. Now, I'm sorry, if you have to wake up 30 minutes beforehand, you're going to have to do it. Because let's face it, and I am guilty of this, sometimes I just get up and I don't even think about myself. I get up and think, I have a client. I get up and think, I have to be. I get up and think and go, oh, this needs to be done. Stop. Allow yourself to do this if you truly want to heal. And then communicate with your loved ones. Set a practice of communication. Set a practice to help you communicate and find your own relationship. I can tell you story after story after story after story of people who were not mediums, who didn't have a mediumistic bone in their body, who had no idea what was going on in the woo-woo world, who have now created strong relationships with their mums, their dads, their children, their spouses, people they didn't even know as well. It's real. And when you are communicating and you are dedicating a certain amount of time to spirit a few times a week, it changes everything. In fact, this is why I wrote this book, Divine Wisdom, because I was having all of these messages bombarding me and I had to write it. And so I'm going to share with you some of the messages in each show. Because as we were going through a pandemic, I wrote 101 messages and people were just like, oh my God, I need that message. So I've decided I'm going to share that with you as well. But I feel here, if you can create your own time with spirit, you'll find that you will just elevate and accelerate your healing. We can't just live in this space of, I'm going to look at photos. You actually have to start that communication with them and find your way. Now, I am actually going to share with you, all right, because this drives me insane and it happens all the time. Some people say to me, I get bombarded with spirit. I get bombarded with spirit and they keep me awake at night. And I'm like, of course they do. And they say to me, how am I going to stop that? And so truly, here's what I say. I was like, do you watch any of those, paranormal shows, or do you watch horror movies, or late at night, is this what you watch? So they're like, oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm like, wrong time to watch it. Wrong time. Because what you're doing is your brain is now thinking, is there a ghost in my house? Is this possible? What is going on? Spirit is around me. Oh my God, da da da. Okay, they do. Happened to me last night. I left this office. This is where I do my readings in a chair over there. I sit here, I communicate with spirit. This room has spirit. I walked out. I was tired. I went to bed. And then, of course, because it's Lisa Williams, she forgets her head if it's not screwed onto her shoulders. And off she goes, and I had to come back in because I forgot something. My glasses, because I can't live without these. So, of course, I come in to get my glasses. And as I opened the door and put the light on, I went, Spirit, because I could see the energy. I could feel the energy. My mind is thinking about it. Now, of course, I'm so used to having spirit around me, but I don't want them around me when I go to bed. No, I'm sorry. There are some things that I don't need to be happening in my world. And I felt it. And of course, in my head, I'm like, oh, God. And then I start thinking, who is it? What is it? Why is it? And then I had to navigate myself. I had to go and do something really mind-numbing, okay? Because I love DIY, so I'm... Don't tell anybody. Don't tell my husband, but I'm changing my kitchen. And I started putting on, new handles. I put on 3 new handles on my cupboards, and I went to bed, because what it did is it got me out of my mind of, there's a spirit in my house, because I was so tired. But what we do is we have to set a routine. So going back into navigating our way and coaching you through grief, you need a way to find a routine that you bring spirit in. And of course, you have to look for the signs. The signs are all around us. How many times do you see 1111, 222, or 333? Mine is 444 right now. How many times do you see a butterfly, pick up a penny, or you go, that was a sign? How many times do you do that? Yes. And let me tell you a story. Even Lisa Williams does it. Even Lisa does it. One of my dearest friends passed away last year, and I felt her last night. And every time I think about this one person, her husband, I'm like, "Are you here?" And she was definitely here. And I'm like, "Okay," but yeah, it's interesting. So start building that communication through signs as well. One of the things that I would always say, yes, ask your loved ones for help. I did. I do. But try not to rely on them to give you the answers. They're going to give you the answers, but it's going to come in a very different way. It's going to come in an intuitive hit. It's going to come in a way that you're going to go off to, let's say you're thinking, oh, I've got to go and do this because this is my solution. And when you're on the way to wherever you're going, you see the sign. That is confirmation that you're on the right path. That's what you have to do. One of my dearest friends, she lost her partner. And I knew she was making the wrong decision in her house. I'm going to tell you, she was. I said to her, this is not your house. She's like, I'm going to buy it. This is not your house. You're not going to... No, Lisa, this is my house. Okay. It's your house. And then something cancelled one weekend, and we were sitting there. She said, I'm just going to look at houses. I'm like, why? You just bought this house. She says, well, I don't really like living here. And that weekend, she found a house. All the signs were there. The numbers, everything was absolutely there. And she said, it's a sign. I went, great, now let's do it. And she bought the house. But there were so many signs that led her to this place that she still had to buy that house to actually get her here. But sometimes we're so wrapped in that grief that we can't make decisions. And so I'm going to say, go back to the simple forms. Go back to a routine, a structure, something simple. And as I said, subscribe, comment, whatever you need to do, and we will send you a link to a simple routine. Easy. And you can do this yourself. So I want to thank you for trusting me on this journey. This is huge. You have to have these daily practices. You have to connect to your inner self. You have to connect to your intuition. What is it that you need? And also maybe ask your spirit, what is it that I need to know today? What is it I need to know? Not what is it you want me to do, but what is it you need me to know today? So let's do this, just a little quick exercise. Let's ground ourselves in our energy. All right. So I want you to imagine that you're sitting on wherever you're sitting. Please don't do this while you're driving. Okay. But wherever you're sitting, I want you to imagine that your energy is really grounded into the earth. All right. As you're sitting down or laying down, I want you to imagine that really you are pushing your energy down into the earth, right from the hips all the way down. You can go down your feet, or you can go directly through your hips if you're sitting down. And I want you to really feel grounded into the earth. And then what I want you to do is your body is naturally a barometer. Your body is naturally that pendulum. And I want you to still feel grounded. And at the top of the head, which is the chakras, the crown chakra, we're going to feel very open. So you're still grounded, but you're very open. And what I want you to do is I want you to then just take a deep breath in. So take a deep breath in and let go. Feeling yourself deeper and deeper in your seat where you are sitting down. And I want you just to trust. And I want you just to think of that loved one if you really want to connect with them. And I want you to ask yourself, or ask them, what is it that I need to know right now? And you may hear this random word. You might see something. And it could be whatever it is. So just ask yourself, breathe. What is it I need to know right now? And you will get a word. Mine was forgiveness. Now, naturally, my mind goes, well, what have I got to forgive? What is this? What, why, where, when, how, who? It's natural. But maybe I don't need to know it. Maybe it's going to come when I am, cleaning, washing up, driving the car, when I'm sitting here quietly working. What is it that I need to know? And I have to trust this. I absolutely have to trust it. So that's what you need to know. And if you're not getting a sign, or if you're not getting a word, maybe this is your sign today. I'm going to share something from here. And I always trust that Spirit gives me what I need. All right. So it says, it's called Truth and Love. The truth and love from Spirit is all that you will know. It is the trust that you have within yourself, your core. Funny how we were just talking about that. This is your balance in all of your life. The balance of who you are with everything. You're at one with life when you see your true worth and value. It's time to step into the journey of the unknown and believe that you will find a pathway of truth. You will find the pathway of peace, and the love in your heart will grow stronger than before. Your truth is your truth and all that you will ever know. You need to live by your truth and open your heart to the endless possibilities that life will provide with. And open your heart to the riches that you seek. Your riches are golden and within you. Nothing more is needed but your integrity, truth, and love. The rest will flow and the rest will be found. Just believe in your heart always. Be well, my friends. That was a message from Spirit. And when I talk about Spirit being a collective, and sometimes it is one person, sometimes I have a variety of spirits. We have Ben, we have Anu, we have Josiah, we have a variety. And when Spirit comes, they're giving you what you need. So maybe that was something that you needed to hear today. So remember, my friends, grief is love that needs a place to go. So let's make sure it goes somewhere that brings you peace. And I'm going to encourage you to trust these lessons and these messages from Spirit that you receive, whether they're from Spirit or from within you. So with that, I'm going to ask you to like, share, follow me on all the socials, whatever it is. Submit a question so I can answer your questions on future episodes and give you the hope, healing, and transformation that you deserve. And next time, we're going to be talking about how intuition can save your life and how it's really transformative and how you just need to start trusting it. So thank you for joining me today. And remember that hope is not a wish. It's a decision to believe in something better. And together, we'll find that hope and make it a reality. So until next time, take care and remember that you are the most important person in your life. So start trusting your intuition and keep shining your light.
Thank you so much for joining me today. And remember, the information shared on this podcast is meant to inspire and support you, but it's not a replacement for personalized advice from a qualified professional. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who might benefit. And don't forget to tune in next time. Until then, take care and keep believing in something better.